Hello and welcome back to Aetheral Space 8.23, Riding the Sands. We are back.
Guys, I'm not alone anymore. It happened. He came back from the store.
He's almost, I came back, look at him, he's almost dead when I found him.
Yeah, I'm very, very sick, so I'll be relying on and leaning on my buddy here. We'll see what we can crank out.
I can't carry the Aetheral Space, well, but I can carry you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry, I forgot what Frodo says back. I'm very sick.
That's what he said. Thank you. I
Because thank you,
appreciate
Samwise.
It's like, oh,
What was
okay.
I saying? Oh yeah, the recap. What happened last time,
I
Tim?
don't know. You were the one here. I don't know.
This is the worst thing ever you could have said to me. Okay, let me think. So, I remember, I think they talked about how they were going to fight the giant spider thing that came out.
Yeah.
And they were like, I have a plan. I don't remember what that plan... Oh, it was like attacking the cord attached to it. I'm trying to remember what else happened, because it was 2 chapters worth of stuff. Was that also when he, like, fucked up one of the Dead Hand people, or was that when I was still reading with you? When Blair went back and was like, I'm going to eat you.
We were both there.
Okay, that's all I remember is the spider. Help me out.
Well, that was pretty much they were putting together a plan.
Also Musashi and Marie kind of like teamed up with the main crew, and they all are sort of together, and Dragon knows Marie's a gene tyrant, but no one else does. So they've kind of like since reconciled somewhat.
Somewhat, yes.
Not really, but like for this plan, yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm so sick, fuck. Dragon Hadrian stared down at the floor as the elevator descended, doing his best not to look at the special officer next to him. Ettore Musashi stood at attention, hands clasped behind his back, doing his best not to look at the cogitant next to him. The ride down to the Exocorp garages was long and laborious. The awkward silence stretched on. Dragon vaguely, though, I assume thought, about clearing his throat, but the atmosphere in this little oblong... This is insane. Also, this should be thought. You fool, you missed that while you were changing to little oblong. Dragon vaguely thought about clearing his throat, but the atmosphere in this little oblong was such that he barely dared considering it. Floor numbers flicked across the monitor above the door. When noise finally broke into the space, it came from Ettore Musashi's mouth. So, he said, voice low, it's been a while. Yep, Dragon fidgeted. When we last met, I recall you abandoning me to the mercies of the Fifth Dead. Do you recall? Dragon glanced away. Sort of. This is like when your friend guilts you about something that you did like forever ago. It's like, dude, that was like 6 months ago.
I left you to die 6 months ago. Get over
it. Sort of, Musashi murmured quietly, only the slightest anger audible in his tone. I'm surprised you can only sort of remember it. It was very memorable for me, after all. But I suppose you weren't fighting. I hardly abandoned you, Dragon rolled his eyes. Besides, there's no way you'd have died to someone like that anyway. You're way too strong for that. Musashi raised an eyebrow, still staring straight ahead at the door. Could that be a compliment, Hadrian? Savor it. You're probably not getting another one. The doors opened, revealing the garage beyond. It was packed with jeeps and atmospheric craft, all of which looked to have seen better days. Smoke was still pouring out of several upturned vehicles. Apparently, Musashi said, stepping out, the Dead Hand attacked this place here when they first became infected. No doubt to prevent us from making an easy escape. They'll still make good cover, Dragon commented, inspecting a jeep on its side as they passed it. Oh, that was the other thing I forgot in the recap, is for some reason the spider's after... Well, not for some reason. The spider's after Dragon, so he's like the bait, kind of. I found that vehicles generally don't respond well to sustained gunfire, Musashi said, with the closest thing to sarcasm he was capable of. You've had a different experience? Dragon stopped and turned to Musashi, frowning. The Dead Hand were the repurposed that could use guns, he explained. And if we've done our counting right, there's only 2 of them left. Didn't the other one got eaten? They don't know that, though, right?
No, Dragon's psychic third eye hasn't seen that.
His cogitant psychic ability.
Hold on, I just need my cogavoyance.
He should just be able to do what Marie did because he's a cogitant forehead. He should just be able to be like...
I figured out how my DNA works. Let me just change it around a little.
That's true. Why are cogitants smart enough to rediscover the knowledge needed to become never mind. Cover like this will suffice against the rank and file. Oh wait, that was Dragon. Leave it to you to seek a hiding place first, Musashi sighed, continuing his stroll to their ultimate destination. Excuse me? I said nothing, Musashi lied. He's got a little more sass to him since meeting Marie. Damn, Musashi.
Spicy Musashi.
Spicy. A couple of refugees hurried past them as they walked, carrying boxes of supplies in their arms. They decided it was too risky for Dragon to take part in the operation to destroy the incoming beast directly, so he and Musashi had been assigned here, where the smaller repurposed would likely try to breach the tower. It's the weakest point, Skipper had said. They'll go for it as their entrance, guaranteed. Some rudimentary barricades had already been set up, with the more hardened miners and security officers standing by with the weapons they'd scrounged together. They'd managed to set up some sentry guns, too, the automatic weapons ready to fire at any threat that presented itself. All their eyes and all their guns were fixed on a single point, at the massive garage doors where they all knew the enemy would break through to kill them. Dragon swallowed as they came to a stop in the midst of the preparations. There's a non-zero chance we will die here, Musashi quietly spoke, closing his eyes. So I suppose I should ask you now. Ask me what? Dragon murmured. Why did you leave the Supremacy? Dragon shot him an annoyed glance. You already asked me this back on Talden. I answered you. Musashi shook his head. I asked you why you betrayed me, he said. And you answered that. Can you remind me what he said to that, Tan?
Well, he said it wasn't really a thing he planned to do. It just happened, and then he said a lot of stuff.
Right.
It was a long conversation.
Right.
I think it also took place in an elevator, funnily enough. The only way to get
Dragon loves
to
elevator
talk,
conversation.
to talk about himself is to trap him on the elevator.
It's Musashi's ability. Thruster elevator. I slow down the elevator with my thrusters long
I
enough
must
to
slow
have
it down to get Dragon to speak as long as possible. He's like, hold on, my earphone.
But why abandon the Supremacy altogether? Your circumstances were dire, so was it simple self-preservation? Was there some ideal behind it? Dragon opened his mouth, but the words would not come. In truth, this was a question he'd already asked himself many times. Back at the start of this journey, he'd admonished himself for being stupid enough to abandon all he had for some strangers he barely knew. Now, though, it had softened into a vague curiosity, one that was difficult to put into words. Musashi's gaze hardened. Don't let me die wondering, Dragon, he said, almost beseechingly. I want to understand what has happened this last year. So it's been a year now!
He's rounded up though, but yeah.
Ah. I'm glad we're no longer in the perpetual 6 months of the last 3 arcs. For my own peace of mind, if nothing else. Dragon looked off to the sealed doors and spoke. Even he didn't know what he was going to say until the words left his mouth. The Supremacy was cold, I guess, he said. I don't know if that's the right word really, but it's the only one I can think of. It was a cold place, like you were climbing over people to do anything. And I felt like it made me cold too. Part of that was just me, I guess, but the Supremacy made me a worse version of myself. You had to become like that just to get anywhere. And I felt what it was like to be something else just for a little bit, and I guess I must have liked it. I didn't want to go back to being me. I wanted to be happy. Atoy Musashi said nothing in response. I don't know if I had that in my head in the time. I assume at the time, yeah. Dragon concluded. But when I think about when I shot you, that's what comes to mind. Musashi's sigh filled the space, and despite the sounds of machinery and busy preparation, that quiet breath seemed the loudest thing in the world. I see, he murmured. Yes, I think I can understand that. And are you happy? That was much easier to answer. I don't know. Musashi frowned, raising an eyebrow. You never know if you were happy until it's over. Dragon explained. That would be like an emotional, like just before the climax of the movie. That was a good moment. That was a certified Tanhony writing moment. Good job. Holy shit, I love that.
It's like Tanhony really wrote
it. Popcorn.
My pastiche of Tanhony. Hey, it's J-Dog here. I came on as a guest to write this episode. Yes, that's Aetheral Space. Like in the middle of the climax, I get a different writer in for one chapter.
Yeah, and you have to like write their SCPOC into the story to like accommodate them so they can feel attached.
Skipper,
check out Death Knife.
Skipper stood up in the back of the jeep, grinning to himself as he watched the incoming horde through his binoculars. Damn, he whistled. There's a whole lot of shit coming our way. The massive monster, shaking the earth with every step it took, was only the beginning. The real concern, as far as Skipper saw it, was the massive repurpose that teemed at its feet. It looked like the entire population of White Village was coming at them. The Panacea Walker, it was called that now, Skipper had just decided, was slow and clumsy. All Skipper had to do was not let it step on him. Against that teeming horde of fast repurposed, however, Skipper had to keep track of dozens of infinitely regenerative enemies while making his way to the Walker's weak spots. Under those circumstances, he couldn't use any of the methods confirmed to permanently kill repurposed either. It hardly let him take his time with the old 9x9 gambits.
Hold on, I need to stop you. I want you guys to acknowledge, if you watch the solo Darnell episodes, how difficult it is to keep reading so effortlessly while replacing a word like that. That was insane.
This is fun too, because I remember when he was writing Milk Jesus, he was dual-wielding sentences. It was insane.
Maybe it's just every writer with their own work becomes like a little mini writing god.
I won't have time to find my way through properly, kiddo, he called out to Ruth, who stood next to the jeep. You got my back? Ruth nodded, stretching her legs, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Her skeletal set already covered her body, crimson aether sparkling around her joints. Skipper clipped his binoculars through his belt and cracked his own neck. My normal bayonet's not going to be enough to cut through something that big, he said. When I whistle, that'll be the signal, yeah? Hit me with a revolutionary boost. That'll give me what I need. He didn't look back at her, but he knew that Ruth had understood. When it came to combat, she never missed a trick. He considered, of course, using his secret weapons... Of course he considered using his secret weapon to take out the Walker, but the conditions weren't right for it. Heartbeat Freedom would have to wait.
Heartbeat Freedom? Skipper American?
Bruno!
He's like, what? Sorry, never mind, keep going.
Bruno! He called back to the driver's seat of the hovering jeep. Once we start going for it, don't stop plowing fruit till the job's done. If I can't get into position, there's no point. You get me? Yep. Bruno's gruff voice came through loud and clear. Skipper grinned. And don't let Serena drive. Hey! He ignored that, taking a deep breath through his nose. He crouched down, holding the sides of the jeep's back carriage for support. The grin faded from his face, his features turning slack and serious. Almost time, he muttered, watching as the shapes on the horizon grew larger and larger. Second we get the all clear, we start. Popcorn.
Oh my god, this guy read one page.
I wrote it as well.
That's true. In real time, multiple times. In the main security room, Marie put a hand to her chin as she circled the hologram of the incoming enemies, watching for any signs that would disrupt their plan. So far, the repurposed were acting exactly as she'd hoped. The horde was moving with the monster, keeping step with it, only maneuvering enough not to be crushed underfoot. It was like they were on autopilot, a straight line of nightmares heading towards them at a leisurely pace. Have you ever read I Am Hero?
No, but I know of it.
Those like zombies and like the extreme crazy monsters are kind of like the vibe I'm getting from this. The hologram flickered and warped as it updated every few seconds, and some Deldeaway's micro-automatics were circling far above the horde, capturing the images this hologram was generated from. So far, everything was going as she'd anticipated. She put a finger to her communicator, ready to skipper the signal. And yet, the slight buzz of the communication channel cut off, the signal going dead. The lights flicked off, plunging them into darkness. The hologram flickered out of existence. In the dark, one of the officers cried out in alarm. All Marie could do was scowl a not entirely surprised scowl. It had begun. The machine John Blair had spent the last hour constructing exploded into a shower of sparks as its purpose was fulfilled. Watching from the desert ridge, you could see the lights on the outside of the Exocorp building go out all at once. The stage had been set. Did he use an EMP?
Who can say?
You know what? You know my retort to that. As he moved his now considerable bulk, he kept his tattered cloak covering him with one massive hand. Taking P in strength had truly been the right decision. Not only did he feel power coursing through every cell, but his comrades' thoughts of creation and innovation flooded through his mind without cease. As he had been before, he had never been able to construct such a useful mechanism. Dimly, he felt confusion in the back of his head. What was left of Peon, vaguely wondering what had happened to it. With a shake of his head, bleached white hair flapping this way and that, he banished it to the deepest subconscious. As he stood to his full height, now at least 8 feet, he grabbed the handle of his other creation, pulling the massive plasma cannon up with him. A day ago, this would have taken all his strength to carry, but now he held it in one hand as easily as a briefcase. The massive cylinder shone in the sun, barrel glinting with promise. Adjusting his hood to give himself a better view, Blair slung the weapon over his shoulder and carefully aimed at the sealed garage doors. That would be his best point of entry. The security forces would be spread thin by their focus on the other repurposed. Expert opinion! Red aether crackled around Blair's hands as the weapon melted and reformed in his grip, optimized in both form and function. Peon's aether ability had been specialized for his hobby as a craftsman. The cannon would now output the maximum amount of power without fail. Blair closed one eye, perfecting his aim. What made a god a god? This moment right here. His finger pulled the trigger, and the lance of plasma that surged forth blew the sealed doors open in one shot. Skipper frowned as the communicator went dead, plucking the device out of his ear and shaking it as if that would fix the issue. It didn't. He exchanged a glance with Ruth. "What's going on?" she asked, concerned. "No clue," Skipper muttered, before looking again at the horizon. With a shrug, he stuffed his communicator back into his pocket. Trails of emerald aether crawled across his arms. "Looks like we're on our own, though." Well, with things like this, nobody else was going to give them the go-ahead. "Bruno!" he grinned, more than a little manic. "Let's get going!" Bruno's foot smashed down on the accelerator. Alright, I have a couple quick comments before we do the fun fact.
Okay.
First, how was the... I really like Peon's ability, but I am curious because it seems a little vague, just like rearranging things.
Yeah, optimize
How is that
it,
something...
basically.
How is that something that's like generalized enough to work with any object, and how can he do that without being a cogitant to like process all the little pieces?
Well, he's just a strange guy. He can understand, like, he's very good with machines, those sorts of things. So his mind understands that. And when he's holding something, he basically pauses Aether through it to scan it, sees where it is not perfected, and then he recreates it with those false fix, basically.
John would like have his memories of like blueprints and stuff and like parts. Okay, that's pretty cool. I like that ability, by the way, like eating brains to gain knowledge. My other thing is, I think the scene with Dragon and Musashi was the first time like Dragon stuck out to me as a character. Not to say that he hasn't been as strong, but you know, like my feelings on Dragon. But I really feel like that
you said
was
that.
like I said,
my feelings on him.
But like that was like the feeling in a movie, like just before the climax. I felt like that was a really, like that was the first time Dragon felt so human to me, rather than just like the smart, sarcastic guy. And it really put into perspective past conversations he had, like in Arc 3 when he talked about, what was it? It was like wanting to do things his way, or like,
yeah,
what was
the
it?
only one who just choose what happens to me is me.
Yes.
That whole thing.
And I really think that was a special moment. And I also think I'm excited that this might lay the grounds for further cooperation between our favorite special officers and our favorite crew. But that was really good, and I just wanted to point that out to you, that was awesome. You handled that really well. I really liked that scene a lot. And those were my two big comments, really. Just those two things. Do you have anything you want to say before we do our fun fact?
Nothing. I'm using all my brain power to come up with the fun fact. Okay, I've got it.
Here's... Okay.
Oh no, I fucking told you. Did I tell you about... Yeah, I told you about the Ascendant General. I used that already.
Yes.
The current... I'm going to go more into the Ascendant General. The current Ascendant General is named Toll. Ascendant General Toll, and he was distinguished for his work in the Drannel Breaches, where he came up with the idea.
Oh my god. That's a pretty heavy piece of lore. I also have something to point to you, Tan. I just realized in page 5. Maneuvering was highlighted red, which I thought was odd because you spelled it right. And then I realized it's because you didn't use the British spelling when your page is set to British. Which is further funny because it shows that, like, it's not really about British English, it's whichever one's easiest to spell for Tan in the given moment. Which is awesome.
This is Aetheral Space English. The distinctions have vanished. It's been like a million years.
Honestly, I like that. I like that. That was a good fun fact. I hope Toll becomes a character we see more of in the future. I'd love to see more special officers again, too. I feel like for a while... I wouldn't say you've been lacking on that by any means.
We've been
seen a
further
couple
away from
already.
where they would be, yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is interesting as we get further away from the Supremacy's influence. But I'm wondering almost like what a special officer, like what a high-ranking member of Final Church or UAP would look like that they might run into. Because we've seen lots of special officers, but we haven't really seen any of that. The closest we had was that guy who was like running the mission that they had to do on Talden, who like used to be a boxer or whatever, but he kind of got owned. I would love to see some more like I want to see like a Final Church like exorcist or whatever. He like starts coming out with his crazy Aether abilities, and is definitely not Kyrie from Fate or whatever his name is.
Well, don't worry. Well, I can't. No comment.
Ooh. But yeah, very good chapter as always, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.